There are moments in history when institutions that claim to stand on moral ground are forced to choose between truth and conscience, to choose between justice and political favor, between defending the oppressed and comforting the oppressor. Today, in Cameroon's post-election crisis, the Catholic Church has chosen convenience. It has chosen silence. It has chosen hypocrisy. And the people see it. Let us recall how aggressively, ladies and gentlemen, the Catholic Church in Cameroon inserted itself into this year's Cameroon election process. Priests and bishops aggressively embarked on a campaign that encouraged parishioners to register to vote. They opened church premises as registration centers. They mobilized volunteers. They deployed observers nationwide. They distributed flyers urging Christians to exercise their moral responsibility by voting. They even preached from the pulpit that civic duty is a Christian virtue. They wanted to be part of the process. They insisted on being part of that process. They used the authority of the church to push people into that process. They believe, I don't know whether rightly or wrongly, that change was in the making. Fine. But now that the results have come out, results that contradict their own observers' report, results that expose blatant rigging, manipulation, and theft of the people's will, the Catholic Church in Cameroon has suddenly found its tongue tied, its courage evaporated, its moral backbone melted like wax before a flame. The observers say the election was stolen. Their hierarchy, from the nuncio to the archbishops, say nothing. Worse, instead of condemning the fraud, the Catholic Church elite marched straight to Paul Biya's doorsteps to congratulate him for his re-election. They congratulated the thief on the cross for stealing but led Jesus to fend for himself, that is, the masses. They congratulated the dictator for tightening his grip. They congratulated a regime that has spent decades persecuting, oppressing, jailing, torturing, and killing its own citizens. What does that say about the Catholic Church commitment to truth in Cameroon? What does that reveal about its understanding of justice? What does it teach Cameroonians about the value of their vote? Inside the cathedral in Bamenda, as we have all seen, ordinary Catholics, faithful men and women in the lion's den in that country, not in the diaspora, showed their disapproval when Paul Biya was mentioned as their president. But their leaders ignored that jeer. Their leaders looked away. Their leaders pretended not to hear. Apparently, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church listens to power, not to the people. And from far away here in Dallas, Texas, comfortably seated in a parish that faces none of the horrors ordinary Cameroonians face back home, comes Father Desmond Ndikum, the man you see on your screen, loud, confident, but dangerously ignorant, swooping in with lectures not based on truth or justice, but on a desire to please those above him. From his pulpit, he launches an attack, not on dictatorship, not on corruption, not on the rigging of elections, not on those who kill without remorse, but on Cameroonians in the diaspora who dare to protest injustice. That is who this man you see is. Listen to him, and I quote, "They have their children in safe American schools while they preach hate back home. Your hands," he says, "are not clean. You are a bad person. Change cannot come at the cost of innocent blood," Ndikum says. That is not patriotism. It is betrayal. End of quote. That's a lecture from the Reverend Father. Pure emotional manipulation there. Pure brainwashing dressed in clerical robes. Let us ask Father Ndikum a few questions. Where was this energy when the Cameroon hierarchy went to bless the stolen victory or the stolen election? Where was this holy indignation when young Cameroonians were being shot in the streets? Where was this moral outrage when Anglophone, as they call it, Anglophone villages were being burned to ashes? Where was this concern for innocent blood when the military massacred millions in the southern Cameroons? Where was his sermon, this sermon on patriotism, when the regime hijacked democracy before the world? Is he saying, is Reverend Ndikum saying, the diaspora is wrong for refusing to accept fraud? Wrong for demanding accountability? Wrong for calling for justice? When Reverend Father Ndikum quotes, "Blessed are the peacemakers," he conveniently forgets that peacemakers confront injustice. They do not excuse it. They do not comfort dictators. They do not turn their criticism towards victims while protecting the perpetrators. Jesus did not bless collaborators. He did not bless traitors. He did not bless silence. He did not bless cowardice. He did not bless those who sit with the powerful and rebuke the oppressed. Not at all. Is Reverend Father Ndikum seeking promotion? Is he hoping the apostolic nuncio takes note of his obedience? Is he angling for elevation within the Catholic hierarchy by saying what places Rome or Yaoundé? Why does the Reverend Ndikum not demand transparency from the church that push people to vote? Why does he not question why the church is silent about election theft? Why is he comfortable scolding the diaspora, but too timid to challenge those who hold real power? Why so? And let us be honest here, ladies and gentlemen. His courage exists only because he speaks from the safety of Dallas, Texas. He flies in and out of Cameroon with no harassment. He enjoys the privileges of the clergy and dines with influential people who protect him. He has no stake in the suffering of the ordinary Cameroonian. Reverend Ndikum has no fear of sleeping in a neighborhood patrolled by trigger-happy invading soldiers from Cameroon. He has no child because he has never married. A child attending school where gunshots ring out every day. Ndikum wants to lecture the diaspora about comfort. At least the diaspora fights with its voice. At least they try to speak truth to power. At least the diaspora refused to be silent. Meanwhile, he clad in priestly garments uses his pulpit to shame those resisting injustice, instead of rebuking the men who steal elections and spill innocent blood. And when asked to appear on this show today, ladies and gentlemen, to defend his statements. He suddenly does not grant interviews. Very convenient, isn't it? The pulpit is safe. The open debate is not. It is easy to speak boldly when no one can challenge you. One must also wonder about those who sit under his ministry in Dallas. What do they learn? What do they learn under him? What gospel do they receive? If they believe Reverend Father Ndikum is a crusader for peace, then their understanding of peace is dangerously shallow. Peace is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of justice. Any peace built on silence, fear, and oppression is not peace, it is surrender. This is why Catholics across Cameroon must begin to stand up. Enough of silent bishops, enough of politically convenient homilies, enough of clergy who preach comfort instead of truth, enough of leaders who call themselves shepherds but bow before wolves. I mean wolves in La République du Cameroun. If the Catholic Church in Cameroon insisted that people vote, then it is incumbent upon it, ladies and gentlemen. They owe it to those people honesty when their votes are stolen. If the church deployed observers throughout the polling stations, then the church owes the nation a public declaration about what those observers saw. If the church cares about peace, then the church must first demand justice. Because justice is the foundation of peace. The hypocrisy must end. The silence must also end. Cameroonians must stop giving blind reverence to religious leaders who choose political favor over moral obligation. Christians must demand accountability from their clergy. Parishioners must tell their priests that neutrality in the face of injustice is complicity. Reverend Father Ndikum and others like him should be ashamed even by their congregants, ashamed for failing the people, ashamed for hiding behind scripture while refusing to confront tyranny, ashamed for using the gospel and the pulpit as a shield for cowardice. History will judge the church, not for the hymns they sing, not for the rosaries prayed, not for the sacraments performed, but for whether it stood with truth when truth mattered the most. And right now, truth is crying out loud in Cameroon. Who will hear it? Certainly not Reverend Father Ndikum and the priests in Cameroon. Certainly not the bishops congratulating dictatorship. And certainly not the hierarchy that push voters to the polls and then abandon them. But the people hear, Cameroonians hear, the diaspora too hears, and the world is beginning to hear too. The hypocrisy of the church does not silence the truth. It only exposes its own moral bankruptcy.